Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to the final edition of Primetime News on TV1 for the year 2020. It's been a trying year for all of us, but here we are at the end of the year 2020. We've made it through these extremely tough times together as one nation, and together we will continue to strive in the coming years as well. Let's start off with a look at your top stories for tonight.
Former President Maithripala Sirisena issues warning to the incumbent government. 2 more Ukrainian tourists test positive for COVID-19. Stock of narcotics valued in excess of 60 million rupees discovered from a multi-day fishing trawler during an operation off the south coast. 4 arrested. Local authorities hopeful of procuring a COVID-19 vaccine before the end of February 2021. Deadly explosion rocks Yemen's Aden airport, killing 26. Saudi Arabia launches air raids in Sana'a after deadly Aden blasts.
Taking a look at those stories in detail now, former President Maithripala Sirisena has warned that if the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is not given a fair number of nominations at the Provincial Council elections, the party will decide to contest alone. In an interview with the Hindu newspaper, he said that organized attacks were directed at candidates from his party by the ruling party during the run-up to the 2020 general election.
Quote, we had asked for 30 candidates. Had we been given 30 slots in the last general election, we would have got at least 25 in parliament. They organized political attacks on our candidates who had been nominated. So, while we still look forward to contesting provincial council elections as a coalition, we insist on the fair share of seats due to us. If we get that, we will have no problem going to polls together with the government. If there is no fair treatment, our party will decide on a solo journey. We are ready for both options, unquote.
Former President Maithripala Sirisena said that he is unhappy with the fact that the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was abolished. He added that he would have made changes to the 19th Amendment to strengthen it. He went on to note that he would have addressed the drawbacks in the 19th Amendment. When the former president was questioned on whether he regretted anything he did during his time in office, he responded saying,
Quote, I am happy with everything I did. I did everything with good intentions. My time in office is historic for the fact that no government-owned rifle ever shot at a citizen. During my time, there were protests every day on the streets, by students, by workers. I had ordered the police and army not to ever resort to shooting. I told them they could take legal action later, but should never fire a single shot, even though the protests gave me a lot of mental agony. That is one of my greatest achievements as a leader, unquote.
During the interview, the former president said that Muslim families in the country must be given the right to bury their deceased loved ones. He stressed that the World Health Organization has said it is possible to bury COVID-19 victims, and added that as a former Minister of Health, he stands by the opinion of the World Health Organization. Responding to a question raised by the Hindu regarding the provincial council system in the country, former President Sirisena said that the provincial council system that has been in operation for 30 years has not been seriously evaluated. He suggested that the government should analyze if the councils have actually served the people. Speaking on the drawbacks of the system, the former president said that out of the total allocation to the provincial councils annually, only 25% or so goes into the actual development of the provinces. Nearly 75% goes towards salaries, vehicles, telephone and electricity bills. He added that there is an excessive number of employees in the provincial councils. The former president opined that a district development board system is better for a small country like Sri Lanka than a provincial council system. He added that, however, abolishing provincial councils is like playing with fire.
Quote, The 13th Amendment is a product of the Indo-Lanka Accord of 1987. The Provincial Councils Act is a product of the 13th Amendment. So I know it is not that easy to abolish provincial councils. India could get a little upset with us if we completely do away with the 13th Amendment. In our region, the friendship with India is very important to Sri Lanka. The friendship between the two countries is of utmost importance and should be strengthened by all governments." Unquote.
Citizens from numerous areas across the island took to the streets today to exercise their right to free speech and to voice their concerns to the authorities.
Farmers suffering due to the Sena caterpillar menace engaged in a protest opposite the premises of the Ampara District Secretariat, demanding authorities to provide them with adequate compensation for their losses. According to the All Ceylon Farmers Federation, a group of corn farmers had also supported the protest. "I have decided to sell off my land if I am unable to pay off my debt. Through the harvest I reap. I have decided to switch professions. I hope the authorities view this as a national crisis."
සියලුම බලධාරීන් දකී කියලා මම හිතනවා.
සේනා දළඹුවගෙන් හානි වෙච්ච ගොවින්ට මේ අම්පාර දිස්ත්‍රික්කේ විතරක්.
Farmers in Ampara alone have not been compensated in excess of 330 million rupees for the damages caused by the Sena caterpillar menace. 160 million rupees in compensation has not been paid in the Monaragal district. The government, which has not compensated farmers for the damages which were caused in 2018, is still idling. Do not attempt to sweep this under the carpet.
සේනා දළඹුවා ෂේප් කෙරුවට මේ ගොවියා ගොළු අත කාලා ගොවියා ෂේප් කරන්න දෙන්න එපා.
The Sena infestation wreaked havoc across the country after first emerging in 2018. On the 19th of November this year, sightings of the Sena caterpillar were reported from Kevilia-Madu, Ampara.
මේ අනතුර දිගින් දිගටම මාධ්‍ය සහ ගොවි සංවිධාන ගොවි නායකයෝ රටට ඕනතරම්
Agrarian communities and the media have constantly highlighted the threat this issue poses. The government had ample time to take steps. Even now, when it has worsened, the government has failed to discharge its duties.
කිසිම ආකාරයේ විසඳුමක් ලබා දෙයිද කියන එක පිළිබඳව ගොවියට විශ්වාසයක් ඇවිල්ලා නැහැ.
Another protest was held at the 3rd mile post in Lolugaswaba, Anuradhapura today by a group of area residents demanding authorities to resolve the long-standing human-elephant conflict. Traffic flow along the Mahavilachia Anuradhapura road was also disrupted owing to the demonstration, which lasted for nearly 1.5 hours. Some elephants which were released from the elephant orphanage have travelled to this area. The elephants are tame and do not fear humans. The animals encroach on the village, eat the fruits on our trees and walk along our roads. Our crops are destroyed.
People do not have food to eat. We nurture a coconut tree for 5 long years. That too is destroyed. We live for only 60 years. We do not have the ability to feed our children during that time.
Subsequently, the wildlife assistant of the Anuradhapura Wildlife Zone, Susanta Semasinghe, arrived at the location and assured the protesters that an operation would be launched to chase away the elephants, following which the crowd dispersed. This was a project carried out in the guise of development. The concrete bunt that was built under the Sapirigamak program to prevent erosion has now collapsed. 2 million rupees has been spent on this project. The bunt has collapsed 4 months after the completion of the project. This was built through the divisional secretariat with the intervention of the irrigation department. This has collapsed even before the money was settled. There is no one to take responsibility now. The contract was handed over to a development committee by the divisional secretariat. Residents claim that the project was handed over to a Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna candidate based on political affiliations without considering any qualifications.
මේ ලිම්පස් තමයි පුරවලා තියෙන්නේ. අඩියට ගල් දාලා ඒක ඒ තැලීමේ ඒතකොට ඒකේ ප්‍රමිතිය අවුලකුත් තියෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා තමයි මේක ඇත්තටම කඩාගෙන ගිහිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ හරි ප්‍රමිතියට කරා නම් මේක ගැටලුවක් නැහැ.
With the detection of 2 more COVID-19 patients from among the Ukrainian tourist group that arrived in Sri Lanka, the total number of COVID-19 cases detected from among this group has increased to 5.
A total number of 394 Ukrainian tourists arrived at the Mattala International Airport on 2 separate occasions in the recent past. They are currently undergoing quarantine at several hotels in the southern province.
PCR පරීක්ෂණ කරලා PCR පරීක්ෂණ
All of them have been subject to PCR tests before they board the plane. Otherwise, they cannot board the plane. All of us know, even if you do a PCR test, you might test positive for the virus 7 to 8 days since the day of the test. That is why we conduct PCR tests here as well.
අපිත් PCR පරීක්ෂණයක් කරන්න එකයි.
These Ukrainian tourists were welcomed in a ceremonious manner at the airport, and it was witnessed that some of these tourists were not wearing face masks.
නැටුම් කණ්ඩායම් එහෙම ටූරිස්ට්ලා
The dance troops did not associate them in close range. I do not think that there is a possibility of the virus being spread here. Even though the airport staff was with them, they were following health guidelines.
ඒ උපදේශ ඔක්කොම දීලා තිබුණා.
Meanwhile, posting a status update on Facebook, former ambassador to Russia Udayanga Veeratunga said out of the 394 Ukrainian tourists, only 5 people had tested positive for COVID-19. He said that they were expecting 5 to 8% of the total number of tourists to test positive for the virus. According to his Facebook status update, they are certain that only 1% of the tourists are positive for the virus, while the remaining 99% are completely healthy. Adding further, Veeratunga had said that 5 Ukrainian tourists testing positive for the virus, compared to 500 people testing positive for the virus on a daily basis in the country, is nothing but a mockery for some people. When 5 passengers inside a flight test positive, how can the rest of the passengers not be infected or be close contacts of the infected? These close contacts have to be quarantined definitely. There is no point talking about various air bubbles. If that is the case, Sri Lankan expatriates who are stuck there have to be brought into the country in a bubble as well. You cannot revive the tourism industry by bringing 180 tourists from Ukraine. They come here on the promise of spending $120 per day. They do not go out and about. They spend that money on their meals in the hotel. The money goes to a company and they deal in rupees. They brought nothing but danger to obtain $120 from a tourist. It is not the parliament or the public representatives who govern the country with Gotabaya Rajapaksa. We know that there is a group of close-knit friends. Groups of tourists are being brought into the country. It is the Rajapaksa clan who does everything. Then the Ministry of Health put up a video saying that Sri Lanka is corona-free. They got it from the tour guide thereafter. Ukraine is a country with a high risk. Why are they bringing tourists from Ukraine? Is the government trying to bring this new variant to the country? That is what we have to ask from the ruling party as the opposition of the country. While hundreds of Ukrainian tourists arrived in the country and 5 of them tested positive for COVID-19, what will be the fate of Sri Lankan expatriates who are eagerly awaiting to be repatriated to their motherland? I am residing in Kuwait. The government is requesting around 415 dinar in order for us to come back to Sri Lanka. That is approximately 250,000 Sri Lankan rupees. We are heavily against this. There is a group of hotels affiliated with this. In a joint effort, they are trying to rake money from poor people for the benefit of their elite friends. It is only in Sri Lanka that we see these ridiculous acts. People can come and go in other countries like Nepal. I am in Qatar. We are subject to PCR testing free of charge. We have been registered in the list of passengers awaiting repatriation, but only 2 to 3 flights have come so far. We still did not get the chance to go back to our motherland. The flights that operate at the moment are not carrying us to quarantine centers run by the government. They have requested us to quarantine in hotels. We have to spend approximately 2 to 300,000 rupees to be quarantined in hotels.
One of the 5 COVID-19 patients who fled from the Galla COVID-19 treatment facility was arrested by the Madampe police and health authorities today. The 5 COVID-19 patients were initially identified from the Nigambo prison. Following the detection of COVID-19, the patients were directed to the Galla COVID-19 treatment facility. Police media spokesperson said that the 5 patients had left the treatment facility without authorization and had travelled to Kurunagala by bus. One of them was later arrested in Dematapitia, Madampe. He was taken to the hospital by police and the public health inspectors. Authorities have decided to place Kathankudi in Batiklo under isolation following the detection of 48 COVID-19 cases in the area. Health Services Director of the Eastern Province, Dr. A. Lataharan, speaking to Newsfirst, said restrictions were imposed on movement until testing to detect COVID-19 cases are complete. In addition, all business establishments in Kathankudi were closed today and security was tightened in the area as well.
With reports coming in of 5 more COVID-19 deaths, the total number of deaths, the COVID-19 related deaths in the country exceeded 200 today. The total number of COVID-19 deaths in the country currently stands at 204 as of this evening. With the detection of 421 more COVID-19 patients, the total number of COVID-19 cases in the country rose to 43,123. According to the Department of Government Information, the new cases are all close contacts from the Peliagoda cluster. Now, on a positive note, a total number of 7,595 patients are receiving treatment in hospitals under medical supervision, with 706 patients recovering today. The total number of recoveries in the island has increased to 35,329.
Meanwhile, advisor to the President Lalit Veeratunga said that Sri Lanka is trying to obtain a COVID-19 vaccine before the end of February. When inquired, the President's advisor said that a final decision on the vaccine will be reached during the next few days. Following a thorough analysis, Lalit Veeratunga has been authorized to make necessary arrangements in consultation with foreign nations and relevant local health authorities. He said that preliminary steps have been taken in this regard. However, a final decision has not yet been made as to which vaccine will be brought into the country. Advisor to the President Lalit Veeratunga said that the decision will be taken considering the approval of other countries for vaccination. He has previously stated that Russia's Sputnik 5, Chinese Sinovac and Oxford University's AstraZeneca vaccines will most likely be available in Sri Lanka. The AstraZeneca vaccine, initially manufactured by the Oxford University, is already being produced at 5 factories in India. Lalit Veeratunga said that discussions are underway to obtain the vaccine from India.
College of Community Physicians of Sri Lanka has said that each citizen should be allowed to be cremated or buried as per his or her and the family's desire within the strict guidelines recommended by the Ministry of Health. Issuing their position paper on the debate about compulsory cremation of victims of COVID-19, the CCPSL said there is no solid evidence indicating that burial of dead bodies would increase the spread of the disease. The report added that with more than 85,000 published scientific literature on COVID-19, not a single case has been reported due to virus transmitted through a dead body. The release added that WHO, CDC and the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control had issued clear and extensive guidelines on handling dead bodies confirmed or suspected as having COVID-19, with detailed attention to the procedures in relation to handling the body in the ward, mortuary, funeral home, during transfer and crematorium burial site. At the same time, these guidelines strongly discourage any ritual practice which may involve in risk of disease transmission. Nevertheless, all these global pandemic control programs clearly stipulate that the victims can be buried or cremated with all precautions mentioned earlier.
A military salute was accorded to General Shavendra Silva today upon the advancement into the ranks of 4-star general.
The felicitation ceremony was held at the premises of the Army headquarters today. Many senior officers of the Army took part in the event.
pay my heartfelt tribute to those brave men fought side by side with me in the battlefield, who made the supreme sacrifice of their life in achieving the goals and targets assigned to them in the noble cause of giving a better tomorrow for our country and its people. And as a frontline commander who bear the testimony of their supreme sacrifice, I salute them and insist in this day that their sacrifice is not forgotten and never ever forgotten. I would render my fullest contribution to give the real meaning for their sacrifice until the end of my life. I pray speedy recovery for officers and the men who rendered the great service to this great country, this nation, at the expense of their limbs, organs, or eyes. Elevating to the rank of Commander of the Army to 4-star level is not merely a personal gain for me. It is a resultant of the utmost dedication, commitment, and performance, and the governing and the public confidence of the organization too.
Defense Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne, who was also promoted to the rank of 4-star general recently, attended an event organized at the headquarters of the National Cadet Corps. The event was held to introduce the awards for the Best Cadet Corps for the year 2021. The award has been named after Colonel G.W. Rajapaksa, a former principal of Ananda College, Colombo. Still in local news, port trade unions allege that there is an agreement with the Adani Company of India with regard to the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port, which is of course of strategic importance to Sri Lanka. Trade unions point out that the current government has abolished the tripartite cooperation agreement signed by the previous government.
There is an agreement with the Adani group of companies in India today. The MOC that was there those days is not there now. The current government is in a new agreement with India. That agreement is to hand over the East Container Terminal to the Adani group of companies in India. Do not hide behind the MOC. Do not hide saying there is no money. Don't say that this is about investors. There is no other reason. The government has the people's mandate. They have it to keep the East Container Terminal of the Colombo port 100% under the purview of the Ports Authority.
It was about to be auctioned off by the previous government. This government came into power saying that they will not sell it, but are now in discussions of selling it. We saw in many occasions where this government did selfish things. If we sell this port to another country, we would have to pay them in order to enter a ship to the port. So we are again selling this port. We have our eye on our resources because we are not expecting this government to auction like the previous one. So we would like to advise this government to not be a government that auctions. If not, we will have to look to another direction to fulfill our goals.
There is no port in India that is 18 meters deep. There is a port right here called Mundra that is 17 meters deep. Vizhinjam is being built to the depth of 18 meters. Who is constructing this? It is being done by the Indian government together with the Adani group of companies. It was scheduled to be open in December or January. Before the Vizhinjam port, we had a port that is 18 meters deep. That is the Hambantota port. It was handed over. Now we have the East Container Terminal. Who will benefit from it being handed over? The benefit will go to the Vizhinjam port. Why is that? It is the Vizhinjam port that has the biggest chance of providing the main shipping lines with facilities. Why do they need our terminal when they have a terminal that is 18 meters deep? They don't have the intention of developing our terminal. About 35% of containers exported through the Indian subcontinent are done through our terminal. Even though India has many large ports, they only re-export 4%. They are implementing the Sagarmala project to isolate us and to bring all the transshipments in India to one location.
මුළු ඉන්දියාවේ ට්‍රාන්ස්ෂිප්මන්ට් එක තැනකට ගේන්න මේ සාගරමාලා ව්‍යාපෘතිය කරනවා.
අපට තියෙන එකම සම්පත මේ පර්යන්තයේ ලංකා ආණ්ඩුවට නැත්තම් ලංකා ආණ්ඩුවට වරායක් නැහැ කියලා සලකනවා.
This terminal is the only asset that we own. The government might as well admit that we do not have a port anymore. This is similar to selling off your farmland, claiming you cannot cultivate it. If the government fails to operate what it constructed, it cannot implement any sort of large-scale project. The corporation in question has sufficient wealth to buy out the entire Indian government. Doing so with our government is a menial task. We do not need a firm that has been chased away by countries such as India and Australia.
කරන්න හදන සමාගමක් මේ රටේ ගෙනල්ලා දාගන්න අවශ්‍ය නැහැ අපිට කරන්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙද්දි.
ආණ්ඩුව දැන් නැගෙනහිර ජැටිය විකුණන්න යනවා. ඔබතුමා මොන තැනද ඉන්නේ මේ වගේ දේවල්?
ඒක පුරාවස්තුවක්ද?
පුරාවස්තුවක් නෙවෙයි. මුතිවරයෙක් හැටියට මේ මොකද හිතෙන්නේ මේ
දේශීය සම්පත් කොහෙත්ම විකුණනවට අපි එකඟ නැහැ.
We are against selling national assets. We rose to power with that promise. The president was granted unprecedented powers and we obtained a 2/3 majority to oppose these moves and to suggest alternatives. We need to seek for alternatives. Why can't we use local investors? Foreign investors can invest but cannot hand over shares.
ඒක ගැන කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක්. හැබැයි කොටස් දීලා දෙන්න බෑ.
The Dravida Munnetra Kalaham Party, or the DMK of India, has requested Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to warn Sri Lanka to halt the process of abolishing the provincial council system. The treasurer and the leader of the parliamentary group of DMK, T.R. Balu, issuing a release, had requested the Indian Prime Minister to inform Sri Lanka that by abolishing the provincial council system, the Indo-Sri Lanka relations will be interrupted. T.R. Balu had further emphasized that abolishing the provincial council system will go against the 13th Amendment that was introduced under the Indo-Sri Lanka Accord. He further says in the release, "It is shocking that the Indian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Indian National Security Advisor were silent when they came to Sri Lanka when an agreement was made between India and Sri Lanka was at a challenging situation."
මේ පාරාත් සභා කියන සුදු අලයක් කිසිම වැඩක් ඇති එක්කෙනෙක් නෙවෙයි. මේවා
The provincial council system is a white elephant and it is pointless. This system has died down since its initiation. There is no point as to why we should revive an already dead system. What benefits have been reaped by this provincial council system? The best example is President Gotabaya Rajapaksa having to go to the villages. The president has to go to the grassroots level and look into the problems of the people. If the provincial council system was implemented properly, this won't be necessary. Only through this example, it is evident that the provincial council system is pointless. The United States is very keen on implementing the provincial council system because that is the easiest way to divide the country. If in case the provincial council system is implemented, that will be the depletion of this government. The first thing to do after the new constitution is to abolish the 13th Amendment.
ප්‍රධානම කාර්යය තමයි මේ 13 වෙනි සංශෝධනය අහක් කරන එක.
පළාත් සභාවල තියෙන විසකුරු ලක්ෂණ පළාත් සභාවෙන්
We believe that the government is responsible for omitting all the bad factors from the provincial council system before holding an election. Police powers, land powers and the rules and regulations that are there to join two provinces should be revoked. President has appointed a committee comprising veterans of constitutional matters to determine as to how the provincial council election should be held if it is going to be held. That committee will assist the formation of a new constitution. We can either hold the election according to the old method or we can hold it in line with a new method. But right now it seems as if it is like a mildly sharpened sword.
පරණ ක්‍රමයට යන්නත් අලුත් ක්‍රමයේ ඉදිරියට යන්නත් ගත යුතු පියවරන් රාශියක් තියෙන නිසා අඩක් ගිල්ල කඩුවක් වගේ තමයි අද පළාත් සභාව තියෙන්නේ.
The National Movement for a Just Society, along with a number of other civil organizations, convened a joint media briefing today.
When we look at the information made available by the government, it changes from time to time. There were various opinions expressed about the Mahara prison incident. The government first said that no shots were fired. Afterwards, a report came out that 4 of the inmates died of gunshot wounds. In the end, in court, it was revealed that 8 were killed due to gunshot wounds. This once democratic country is now slipping into a dictatorship.
The lawyers for the People organization expressed the following opinions in Colombo today.
Do you recall the massive fire at the Supreme Court complex? We saw smoke billowing from the premises. This incident occurred a few days after it was announced that the Ministry of Justice would be relocated to the WTC. Remember, the fire brigade is situated down Dali Road. The distance from there to the Supreme Court is only 500 meters. We have a suspicion over this incident. What was destroyed in the fire?
In your weather forecast, according to the Department of Meteorology, lightning accompanied by heavy showers could be experienced in the Sabaragamua, central and western provinces and in the Gaul, Matara, Batiklo and Badula districts. Further, the Met Department said that some areas would experience showers exceeding 100 millimeters. The department said that gale winds could be experienced at some times during heavy showers in these areas as well. The Department of Meteorology advised the general public to be vigilant and to take necessary steps to prevent accidents caused by lightning. In more local news, narcotics worth over 60 million rupees were seized from a multi-day fishing trawler during an operation carried out by the Navy in the seas of the Gaul fishing harbour.
Navy media spokesman Captain Indika De Silva said the trawler was owned by a person in Chilao. 5.9 kilograms of ice and more than 1 kilogram of heroin were seized during the operation. He said 4 suspects were arrested along with the trawler. However, one of the suspects had managed to flee. The suspects were identified as residents of Matara, Nigambo and Panama. The Navy media spokesman said further investigations regarding the incident are currently underway.
The body of a person who is believed to have been killed by a leopard was found in Panama, Kudumbigala in Ampara.
According to the police, the individual is believed to have been dragged out and killed by a leopard while he was inside a hut in a cultivation last night. The deceased was a 55-year-old. The remains of the deceased is currently kept at the Pothuvel hospital, and as of now the post-mortem examination has not been carried out. Meanwhile, a discussion regarding the incident was held at the Panama Mahavidyalaya this evening. It was held with the participation of the Lahogala Divisional Secretary, Security Divisions and the area residents. Our correspondent reported that attention was given on deploying the police and the military for the protection of the residents. Recently, we saw a few incidents happening. The conflict between these animals and humans will increase further since the essential other forest systems are being freed for cow grazing. The correct methods must be used to prevent these things. If not, these conflicts will only increase. News First has reported on several instances where leopards had encroached on villages. On the 30th of November, we reported on the lives of the people in Damakotavala and Kurullanpokana villages in Panama who live in fear due to this problem. On the 18th of April 2019, a worker who was engaged in road development work in Kumana National Park was killed by a leopard while another person was seriously injured.
273 buses of the Sri Lanka Transport Board, which were removed from service due to dilapidation, were repaired and re-added to the fleet of buses of the SLTB.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa graced the occasion at Gallface Green, and these buses will be added to transport passengers in the most rural areas in the country. 273 buses that were completely out of service at 107 depots island-wide have been repaired at a cost of 115 million rupees. According to the Department of Government Information, Dilu Mamunugama, the State Minister of Transport, Regulation, Bus Transport Services and Railway Carriages, Motor Industries, initiated the program under the guidance of Transport Minister Gamni Lokuge. The President's Media Division said the SLTB depots and Lakdiv Engineers Corporation had initiated the project. The President, who inspected the newly rebuilt buses, also engaged in a cordial conversation with the employees of the SLTB. Buses are to be deployed to fulfill the needs of the people in rural areas.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa today urged the authorities to reduce the prices of essential commodities.
The authorities who are responsible for controlling the prices of goods have challenged us to a debate. We are ready for this challenge, but I would like to request these authorities to reduce the price of these goods before the debate. Reduce the price of rice, dal, sugar, coconut, salt and salmon. The public is not looking forward to a debate. They are looking forward to seeing affordable prices of products in those gazettes.
Sajid Premadasa expressed the following views after receiving blessings from Venerable Baragama Nandasiritero, the chief incumbent of the Uswella Uchchavalika Purana Raja Mahaviharaya in Nambalantota.
At least 22 people have been killed and more than 50 wounded in an attack at the airport in the southern Yemeni city of Aden.
There was at least one explosion shortly after a plane carrying the war-torn country's newly formed government arrived from neighbouring Saudi Arabia. Aid workers and officials were among the casualties, but the Prime Minister said he and his cabinet were fine. The Information Minister accused Houthi rebels of a cowardly terrorist attack. Yemen has been devastated by a conflict that escalated in 2015 when a Saudi-led coalition of Arab states launched a military operation to defeat the Houthis and restore President Abdrabbuh Mansur Hadi's rule. The fighting has reportedly left more than 110,000 people dead, triggered the world's worst humanitarian disaster with millions on the brink of famine, and left the country even more vulnerable to the COVID-19 pandemic.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for today and for this year. May the new year be full of blessings and hope, so that darkness and sadness will stay away from you and from all of us. It has of course been a very trying year, but we as Sri Lankans are always hopeful for the coming year. Have yourselves a very, very happy new year. Signing off, the News First team, I'm Charlene Benedict with our sign language interpreter for tonight, Brian De Cruz.